Hello, everybody. My name is Luke Menzel, CEO of the Energy Efficiency Council. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's forum on Victoria's revamped Greener Government Buildings program. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this session from the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Also, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands on which the attendees at today's forum live and work, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this event. Now, 2020 was a challenging year right around Australia, but Victoria did it particularly tough. And as everyone on this call would know, the energy efficiency sector was hit hard. But to their great credit, the Victorian government stepped up to the plate as part of their broader economic recovery plans and committed around $1 billion to energy efficiency stimulus measures, the biggest single investment in energy efficiency by any state government in Australian history. So we're here today to talk about one element of that broader program, the revamp of the Greener Government Buildings program. Established under the Brumby government in 2009, the GGB has done an outstanding job supporting energy efficiency and renewable energy in public buildings to lower energy costs, reduce emissions and create jobs. And as we'll hear, this injection of funding both helps our industry get through the immediate crisis, but importantly, it also secures the future of the program for the next decade. Now, today is a short, sharp session with two great speakers, but we'll try to get to your questions. So as we're chatting, please remember to drop them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Now, in the second half of today's webinar, we'll hear from Sam Burke from the Department of Treasury and Finance, who will talk through some of the more technical details of the revamped GGB program. But to kick us off, we are thrilled to have the Honourable Danny Pearson with us. Danny Pearson MP is Victoria's Assistant Treasurer, Minister for Government Services, Minister for Regulatory Reform and Minister for Creative Industries. Prior to being promoted to Cabinet, he was the Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier and the Chair of the Public Accounts and Estimates Committee. And of course, as Assistant Treasurer, he is responsible for the Greener Government Buildings Program. So, Assistant Treasurer, welcome and congratulations on all the work you've personally done to champion this exciting new phase of the GGB.
Well, thank you, Luke, and thank you especially for suggesting this event and for your continued interest in this program and in the Andrews Labor government's bold energy efficiency program. Look, at the outset, I would like to acknowledge the various traditional owners on the lands on which we are individually meeting, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and any other First Nations people on the call today. So let me start off by noting that this past year has asked more of us than we could ever have imagined, but equally it presents us with a rare opportunity. An opportunity to create a Victoria that is future ready and solving contemporary problems. Rising to the challenge of climate change and achieving greater energy efficiency is just part of that challenge. The Andrews Labor government is proud to be keeping this issue front and centre with its Greener Government Buildings program. In last year's budget, we committed a further $60 million for this program, which was established by the Brumby Labor government back in 2009. And this means more solar panels and energy efficient lighting for schools and hospitals. It means more jobs, more greenhouse gas abatement, more savings on energy costs, and a better future for all. And that's on top of the significant achievements this program has already clocked up in the last decade. We're passionate about helping the environment, but also about making every taxpayer's dollar work as hard as it can for value. I'm particularly excited about this $16 million in funding and what it can achieve. But a new funding model means it will go even further than before. As many of you may know, previously funding in the GGB program was provided as interest-free loans to departments. They were then required to repay the funding using savings achieved by their energy efficiency projects. These repayments were then transferred back into the consolidated fund to offset state debt. What's different this time around is that this new funding will go instead into a revolving fund. The fund will be used to provide loans to departments and agencies so that they can implement their projects, consistent with previous practices. But this is the important difference. Going forward, savings achieved by agencies will be repaid into this revolving fund, so they can continue to fund more projects. As a result, Our $60 million investment is estimated to enable over $200 million of projects over the course of the next 10 years. And it will continue indefinitely, as long as there are opportunities to save energy in government buildings. As such, we've created a sustainable funding source that will become self-funding from 2026-27 onwards. And that means more certainty. It means a clearer pipeline of projects and jobs for our engineers, our project managers, our suppliers, our electricians, our plumbers, and everyone in this vitally important industry. Over the course of the next 10 years, the GGB program will invest $200 million in energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. It will support 100 jobs initially and up to 200 in subsequent years. It will make improvements to over 600 government buildings. It will cut greenhouse gas emissions by 10.7%. It will achieve annual cost savings of $30 million by 2025 and a massive $34.6 million by 2030. This represents a massive win-win-win for the environment, for jobs, and for the government's accounts. Hospitals and health services, public arts and sporting facilities, schools, TAFEs and public transport facilities are likely sites to get a green energy makeover. And for most of these projects, we'll be looking for a payback time of 5 years or less. I'm expecting lots of solar solutions, lighting upgrades, heating, ventilation and air conditioning, building automation and optimization. But I'm also excited to see what innovations and new technologies the market will offer. Separately to the Greener Government Buildings Program, the government is also investing an additional $40 million to install solar and high-efficiency LED lighting right across our public health facilities. This will be delivered through the Victorian Health Building Authority and builds on the success of the previous $13.5 million regional health solar program that the GGB funded. This program achieved 8.6 megawatt peak of solar installed across 73 health facilities, 11 gigawatt hours of estimated generation per year, $2.7 million in annual energy cost savings, and 13,000 tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions abated annually. Similarly to GGB, this additional $40 million will be provided as a loan, subject to an aggregate 5-year payback period. Addressing climate change is everyone's responsibility. The GGB program is just one way the government is leading in this space. Under the Climate Change Act 2017, the government is required to make a 2025 operational pledge relating to reducing greenhouse gas emissions from government operations. This new investment in GGB enables the government to make a substantial 2025 operational pledge. This GGB investment alone is estimated to cut general government sector greenhouse gas emissions by 4.6% by 2025 and 10.7% by 2030. Regardless of the procurement method and the solutions installed, every project will need to have a measurement and verification plan. For government and many customers, this is crucial, not because the savings are tied with loan repayments, but because it provides proof and support for the future. It shows that cost saving and greenhouse gas abatement can be achieved and do make a vital difference. The Energy Efficiency Council is doing a fantastic job of supporting standards and professional development of the industry. As part of that, we're making it mandatory to have a certified measurement and verification professional involved in every energy performance contracting project. The Certified Energy Efficiency Specialist and Certified Energy Efficiency Leaders are important too. So we'll be looking favourably to suppliers that obtain these qualifications where applicable. This funding pledge also aligns well with Infrastructure Victoria's recently released draft 30-year infrastructure strategy. In line with Infrastructure Victoria's recommendation, we want to show that retrofitting buildings and making them more energy efficient isn't just talk. It creates real win-wins that save money and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Since its establishment in 2009, GGB has facilitated $200 million in energy efficiency and renewable energy projects across 35 projects. It's achieved an estimated $27 million in savings per annum. and abated over 132,000 tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions per year. This is an amazing achievement, made not by government alone. It's taken the help and collaboration of the energy efficiency and renewable energy industry. And that's thanks to the great ideas, clever application and dedication of you and your colleagues. Congratulations and well done. This government is proud to support the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Assistant Treasurer. And as I was saying before we started broadcasting, the response from our members to your announcements in last year's budget was incredibly positive. As I said in my opening remarks, it was a hard year last year for the energy efficiency sector in Victoria, but the Victorian government recognised that, and not just with this announcement, but with a raft of announcements across different sectors of the economy, responded and made sure that energy efficiency is really at the heart of a broader economic recovery package. As you were talking, I was reflecting on the fact that, you know, a program started back in 2009, obviously kind of visionary at the time, but if you didn't have it, you'd almost need to create it at this moment to drive the sort of carbon abatement and energy cost reductions, energy efficiency measures that the Victorian government's going to be targeting. What's it like to sort of, as an assistant treasurer coming into a portfolio, get your head around those various opportunities that you have to drive that agenda, and then to be carrying it forward, to have the baton passed to you, and then indeed ensuring that the program's set up for the next decade?
Oh, look, it's an incredible privilege and honour, and I think that for those of us who are lucky enough to sit around the cabinet table, you have that opportunity to really make lasting and meaningful change. And I remember the Brax-Brumby government incredibly well, and those 11 years, it seems like a long time, but it actually goes incredibly quickly. And I think really what we want to try and do with programs like this is to make a real significant statement, make a significant announcement, but to also have a level of perpetuity around the initiative. By making sure that this can be self-funded, it means that the program won't be subject to the vagaries of a budget consideration down the track by potentially a future government. What it means is that it becomes self-funding, the money is there, it can stay there, and it can continue to do the work. And so for me to be in this situation now where I can be associated with landmark reform, significant reform to help address climate change in a very tangible and practical way, and to be play my role and part of this $1 billion initiative and focus about reducing our carbon footprint, it's a really big honour, and it's something that I'm incredibly proud of.
And what you're saying about that certainty, absolutely crucial. And I can report that is how it was received by industry. In a moment of profound uncertainty, perhaps the most uncertainty that we've experienced in our professional lives. What the Victorian government did with this decision is give our sector certainty about a forward pipeline of work. And that materially impacts things like hiring decisions for companies, small, medium, large, and multinational. And I can already see that flowing through in the conversations that I'm having with people that will be looking to support this program of work.
I think it's a good point, because if your members have got the degree of confidence that this program is going to be around for a while, then you can look to the future with confidence. It also enables you to start to probably think about, well, what's the next thing? What's the next innovation? What are some of the other opportunities? How can we do things better? It's very hard though to do that if this funding program is on an annualised basis. You can't really plan off the back of a 12-month plan. But when you've got this this level of investment, this long-term commitment, it gives your members the degree. I'd like to think it will give your members the degree of confidence to look to the future with confidence.
And going to that piece around building building capacity in the market and capability of the market, but also the innovation piece. One of the other things we see with these sorts of programs around the world when you've got that long-term vision is that it develops skills and capabilities and approaches to energy performance that then are available to the private sector as well. And so, the government taking that leadership position makes it that much easier for other organisations across the economy to then leverage those skills and those talents, and we see it time and time again. So that's been happening to some degree in Victoria over the last decade or so, but I think we can expect it to ramp up over the coming decade, Assistant Treasurer.
Well, I think the public sector in Victoria is worth about 25% of the state economy, and so it's not an insignificant amount. And I think for initiatives like this, present the opportunity to develop a really significant ecosystem of energy efficient businesses. And I think through organisations like yours, you play a really important role in providing that networking, that clustering opportunity, the ability to innovate, to be agile, to collaborate, to share knowledge, and to think about what further innovations can be brought to bear. I mean, you just look at the rate of change that's happening in the sector and the way in which innovation is really at the front and centre of everything that your members do. We want to make sure as a government that we continue to have the benefit of having great organisations like yours and your members active and busy and focused in Victoria in order to make sure that we can get the benefits of that by driving further efficiencies and having further reforms being able to be developed and deployed right across the VPS.
Mm-hmm. And just looking a little beyond the Greener Government Buildings program, obviously a big year for the Victorian government in sort of charting a course for the broader Victorian economy, in that very strong commitment that the Andrews government has made to net zero. It's a legislated commitment, and obviously the sector pledges. Do you have any sort of guidance on how you're thinking about that journey and the kind of commentary that may be coming in the coming weeks and months on that front?
Well, I mean, the government will be handing down a budget in May. You might recall that the budget was handed down in November, 6 months later than we'd planned, because... Hell
of a turnaround, Assistant Treasurer.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. It's a very dynamic environment which we're operating under, but look, thankfully we were able to make the necessary investments to support the economy, and I think that the economy has responded very well. And I think if you look at the rebound, we're looking at a really strong rebound. I think Deloitte Access are contemplating or modelling to Victoria to be the fastest growing state in the nation this calendar year with a growth rate of 5.4%. We'll be handing down a budget in May of this year, and there'll be some further announcements about that. But this government has been serious about trying to tackle the challenges of climate change head on. We listen to the science, we understand the science, we support the views of scientists. But what's more important and what's significant under this government is that we are prepared to put real dollars behind the science to support it. So whether it's the Greener Government Buildings, whether it's about the renewable target, whether it's about government purchasing more energy efficient energy, whether it's about changing the planning regimes to allow more wind farms. This government has taken this matter head on and tackled it seriously. Talk is cheap in this game, but what really matters is real direct action to tackle climate change. As you mentioned at the outset, we had the single biggest funding announcement to tackle climate change of any state government in the history of Australia. That's something I'm really proud of. And I think you'll see the government continue to pursue those targets, those initiatives, to ensure that we do everything that we can to reduce our carbon footprint as quickly as we can.
Mm-hmm. Well, Assistant Treasurer, I know you have other matters that you need to get to, but I just want to thank you for one last time for your leadership in this space, and just to say that we as an industry stand ready as always to ensure that the GGB does everything that you hope it will and more over the next decade, and to support the broader transition across the Victorian economy. So thank you again.
Well, in responding, can I thank you for the opportunity to speak today? To all the members on the line today, on behalf of the Premier and the government, thank you for everything that you do. You've made significant investments. You've employed a large number of Victorians at a very challenging period of time, and you're doing your bit to reduce the state's carbon footprint just by doing your job. And it is welcome. It is greatly appreciated by me and the government. We want to continue to work closely with you to understand what we can do more of, how we can improve our efficiency, how we can improve our performance, how we continue to be at the cutting edge of renewables, and to find ways in which we embrace new technological solutions to reduce our carbon footprint. So really want to thank you, Luke, and all your members for all your efforts, and we'll stay in touch.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Assistant Treasurer.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right. Well, that brings part one of today's webinar to a close, but stay tuned because we're about to get into the nitty gritty. We now welcome someone that will be a familiar face to many on the call. Sam Burke is Director of Land and Property at Victoria's Department of Treasury and Finance. He has 18, count them, years experience working in the energy efficiency and property sectors and has previously worked as an engineer, energy auditor and project manager. These days, Sam is responsible for government land sales and acquisitions and management of a property portfolio. My notes say here, Sam, valued at an eye-watering $800 million. But of course, your primary claim to fame is overseeing the establishment of the Greener Government Buildings program back in 2020. And I should say, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I believe you were the inaugural energy efficiency champion at the very first National Energy Efficiency Awards way back in 2012. So I've just spent 3 or 4 minutes dating you. But welcome.
Thank you, Luke. That's very kind. That's very kind.
Mate, obviously, as I said to the Assistant Treasurer, we're thrilled by the announcement, thrilled by the continued commitment, and appreciate, obviously the Assistant Treasurer's leadership position, but all your hard work behind the scenes in making that possible. I thought I might open by asking just some, a high-level question about some of the key things that you want to make sure that particularly the industry members on the call are across in terms of how they can effectively participate in the scheme in terms of, certifications and the like.
Yeah, great. So how about just a quick introduction as well, because I do probably know a number of people who are listening in and watching today, but for those that I haven't met, so I'm with Peter Fan, who's another well-known person throughout the industry. We look after the Greener Government Buildings program on behalf of the Assistant Treasurer, and it's kind of unusual for a Treasury Department to be doing this, but it's, I suppose, a matter of history. That's where the program came up, and it's also, I suppose, really does make that point in an ongoing way that programs like this are also about smart financial management as well as about environmental policy. So yeah, just shouting out to Peter Fan, who does most of the work on this program, and a number of people might have already been in contact with Peter. Also just stipulating that what we do, so everyone's sort of familiar with that. So we manage the Greener Government Buildings program. What does that mean? It essentially means we do a number of things. We manage the Energy Performance Contracting Services panel. So this is a panel of suppliers, pre-qualified suppliers, specifically for energy performance contracting projects. We support agencies with advice, government agencies that are implementing projects. I'd summarise it by saying generally we try to make processes and projects work well for both sides, for both the government agencies and the suppliers. That means things working efficiently. We don't want things to be overly difficult for suppliers nor for government agencies. Often that means we're helping either side, helping both of them communicate. It might mean that we're updating templates to make things easy for both sides. That could be templates for how projects are implemented, tender documentation, the contracts, measurement and verification plans, those sorts of things. Both Peter and myself have got a technical background in engineering, and we've been certified in measurement and verification as well. So we can talk the technical side and sometimes provide that that go between the government entities and the suppliers. In terms of, I haven't really answered your question at all there, Luke, but
not at all.
The question was really about upcoming projects and how they could be involved. What do suppliers want to hear about? And so we did talk about this, and I suppose suppliers, and it's probably no surprise, you're keen to hear about what projects are coming up. I'd say that broadly there's going to be a number of, I'm probably going to be a bit generic at this stage, and that might annoy some people. I will make a commitment that we're now that we do have an ongoing revolving fund and an annual investment of about $20 million every year, we do expect that there'll be, 5+ sizable projects every year from across all different parts of government. And the commitment is that once we do have this pipeline developed, and we're looking to, in the past, we've had to deal with sort of year-to-year funding, and so it's been difficult to get a long-term pipeline. But now we have this revolving fund, we can look at establishing a pipeline that covers a number of years. Once we do have these projects lined up and we have commitment from the agencies involved, we'll look to publish that on the Greener Government Buildings website. But so what sorts of projects? There's likely to be two broadly different categories. There will be energy performance contracting projects for the large complex facilities. We're talking large metro hospitals, large TAFE facilities with interconnected services, those sorts of large, probably mainly based in metro areas, large facilities. So that they will follow the energy performance contracting path. There will also be other projects that aren't energy performance contracting projects. They'll be single technology projects, most likely. The most common types that we see, which will be no surprise to anyone, are lighting, LED lighting upgrades and rooftop solar projects. So we expect those to be implemented probably more across the smaller but numerous facility buildings and government facilities across the state. So we're talking schools, primary and secondary schools spread across the state. We might be talking police stations, small regional health services and the like. So that's kind of what we're expecting over the next little while. In terms of how to, a clear question that's probably on everyone's mind is, how do we hear about these projects? How do we know when they're coming up, and how do we then participate in those projects, register our interest? And there's a couple of different ways. So depending on the type of project, if it's an energy performance contracting project, that will be managed in the way that we've managed EPCs for the last 10 years or so, which is that we'll alert everybody, all of the suppliers that are on the EPC services panel. So for those that aren't aware of this panel, this is a panel of pre-qualified EPC service providers. There is a web link which I think will be put up in the chat box, which will direct you to the Greener Government Buildings website. That will show you details of the EPC services panel. There's a lot of other information on there as well in terms of all the templates for how we develop tender documentation, contracts, also the very important measurement and verification templates. For those that aren't EPC service providers at the moment but are interested in becoming EPC service providers, they can look at that website and consider putting an application in to join the panel. Once you're on that panel, you'll get alerted probably directly by our team, by Peter Fan or myself, as to upcoming energy performance contracting projects. We generally do that through an expression of interest approach for every project, which will be sent out via email to all of the members of that panel. So that's for EPC. For non-EPC projects, single technology projects, lighting, upgrades, rooftop solar rollouts, they'll be done in a different way. The Tenders Vic website is the other link that I think will be hopefully put up in the chat box. So those projects, we currently don't have panels for suppliers for those projects. That's something that we will be looking into over the next little while. In the interim, those projects will be publicised on the Tenders Vic website. So those that are interested in those types of projects, I'd recommend you get on the Tenders Vic website, click on that link. They'll I think on the first page that you come to, there's a section there where you can register on Tenders Vic, and you'll then receive alerts for specific types of projects that you're interested in. So that's kind of that's what I had noted down to mention, Luke. Did I answer your question that time?
No.
Well, maybe you can enlighten me. What was your question again, mate?
I'll ask it. I actually asked you, and it was just to kick you off. So I'm delighted that you provided all of that information. But perhaps the other piece that I think we were keen to cover. Certainly, I received a couple of questions on this. Was the certifications element and what your expectations are around that. It was something that the minister lightly touched on, but perhaps you could expand on what the expectations will be, both for, I guess, on the EPC side and also on the single technology side.
Yeah, great. So there's a few different types of certification that we're very interested in, and they're very specific certification schemes that apply to these sorts of projects. So just to run through them, there's the Certified Measurement and Verification Professional, the CMVP. And then there's the two Certified Energy Efficiency Professionals accreditations, which is the SEAL, the leader, and the CEAS, which is the specialist. So we're very interested in these certifications. Now, just to run through them. So for the CMVP, the M&B professional, these are the people that are trained in a very methodical way, measuring and verifying the outcomes of energy efficiency projects, and they follow the International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol, the IPMVP, and are trained in that. For every energy performance contracting project that we do, we'll require there to be a CMVP involved in preparing the M&V plan, overseeing the M&V process and signing off on that. So that'll be a sort of a mandatory requirement for all energy performance contracting projects. Also for energy performance contracting projects, we will be looking for certified energy efficiency leaders and specialists, SEALs and CEASs. For every project, it'll be highly regarded when looking at the tenders. It gives a greater level of confidence to us and to our agencies that the project will be delivered in the way we expect it. It'll be a clear link between objectives, design, implementation, and follow-up measurement and verification of savings. So we strongly encourage anyone listening, if you're looking at being involved in our program over time, to look at getting one of those, well, basically both the SEAL, CEAS and the CMVP accreditation in place with your staff. I think, Luke, the EEC is probably the contact point for all of those certification schemes, as you run the SEAL and the CEAS directly and facilitate the CMVP training as well. I'd say that CMVP, SEAL and CEAS, while we say that mandatory requirement to have CMVP involved in an EPC, we also would look at, would hope that CMVPs, SEALs and CEASs are involved in other types of projects as well. You know, single technology rollouts, while they might be simpler, there's still a need for us to make sure that the savings are measured and verified in a way that we can trust. I know that there's been an effort that we've put into developing templates and pro formas into how to verify different types of solutions under an EPC or different projects, and you can see them again on that link to the GGB website if you scroll right down to the bottom. But having someone that's trained in that subject is very important. It just makes for a much simpler project and a process where we can really talk to people that understand how we want things measured and verified. I suppose it's, sometimes I think people might look at government as being government push these things and maybe the private sector doesn't push M&V in the same way that we do. We'd encourage the private sector to follow this type of approach as well. I know that sometimes it's commented that, look, you're chewing up money by spending it on M&V. I'll always say that, look, I think it's probably money well spent. And generally, if you can get it achieving the savings level that you want to achieve, it's got to be a mandatory, particularly for government, because we're looking after taxpayer dollars. But I would have thought, the private sector would have as much interest in making sure their projects are achieving the outcomes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I guess the only thing I'd add is it's a way of building confidence in the market for energy efficiency that can sometimes be a little bit intangible as compared to whacking a solar panel on the roof. To be able to have that system and that process whereby you can verify you've delivered what you promised. It, as I say, ensures that customers know that they're getting what they're promised and willing to reinvest and tell others that they're getting value for money. Well, we've got a few questions, Sam. Was there anything else you wanted to cover off before I start working my way through this?
So I suppose I've been talking largely about the Greener Government Buildings Program and the funding, $1 million, which will result in our $200 million over 10 years, our revolving fund. There was the additional $40 million of funding that was specifically provided for energy efficiency in the health sector. I just wanted to point out that I suppose there is a very big focus on the health sector throughout not only the Greener Government Buildings Program, but with additional funding. There is the intention at this stage through the Department of Health is to look at running two streams. So essentially looking at rolling out the single technology lighting and rooftop solar, but at the same time looking to do at least one EPC, ramping up to 2 EPCs at larger metro and big regional hospitals over the years. So for further details, if anyone's interested in finding out more about those projects, what's coming up, Tiernan Humphries is the go-to man in the Department of Health. And again, I think his details will be put up in the chat bar on the side. And Tiernan's, I think, listening and happy to take queries from people later on.
Is there any concern, Sam, that fabulous? I mean, $100 million with that $40 million sort of slated to be rolled out very, very quickly on sensible technologies. Is there any concern that focus on sort of LEDs and solar, and particularly the LEDs, which often help drive a payback period and allows you to sort of have a mix of technologies which delivers an outcome for government, that by having a dedicated LED program that might make it a little bit harder to get some more ambitious projects in the health sector up down the track?
Yeah, I hear you, but I think we're quite conscious of that. Our intention is to try and achieve as much as we can across not only the health sector here, but all types of government buildings. So we're acutely aware of the fact that if you strip too many of those low-hanging fruit out of a potential EPC project, you don't have an EPC project really to follow. So we're quite aware of that. Tiernan and I have had discussions about quite recently about that and ensuring that we preserve the big projects that are really best suited to EPCs. So we won't be looking to strip those opportunities out of those projects. So that's sort of a generic answer to that, but we are quite aware of that. There are, I suppose the reason why we're looking at these rollouts of technologies is there are certain types of facilities where it becomes inefficient and a little bit difficult to try and run an EPC.
Yep.
We do see the benefit of the EPC being in cases where it's quite unclear as to what the best technological solution will be, and also where there might be a significant technological risk. So in the case of solar, rooftop solar and lighting rollouts, there isn't really a significant technological risk. uncertainty in terms of what the savings are going to be.
Yep.
So where that looks like that's the majority of the opportunity, we'll probably look at the technology rollouts rather than EPC.
Yeah, and I can see, Sam, there's a comment here from Tiernan in the Q&A saying that LEDs will be focused on smaller rural and regional hospitals where the potential for an EPC is much lower, which makes total sense.
Yep.
There's another question here while I'm on it in the chat from Cecilia. Are your single technology projects likely to consider HVAC, which accounts for about 40% of commercial building energy use?
Good question. Typically, our approach has been where there is a significant HVAC component that it might mean that the project's best addressed through an EPC. But always interested in other thoughts on that. So we're happy to receive ideas and suggestions from the industry. If there were particular building types that it was considered that a rollout of HVAC might be a better way to go. Happy to hear that.
Sam, obviously, there's been quite a bit of water under the bridge since you set up GGB back in 2009, and the 2020s energy efficiency, renewables, absolutely as important as ever, but flexibility and demand management sort of coming into focus. As you're looking to upgrade sort of very, very large energy users in the government portfolio like hospitals, is that something you're going to be thinking about, sort of demand side flexibility and the opportunity to unlock that with things like HVAC and other services?
Yeah, I mean, we're always open to it. The difficulty is in how we can build something like that into our projects. Our projects that are reliant on a specific amount of funding being provided upfront within a sort of an agreed repayment amount, which kind of requires us to, in the case of a large project and a complex project, to do an EPC where we can really lock that number in over time. Other, single technology projects, we can have some confidence in the numbers, but we know upfront, within a certain range, what the outcome is going to be. Demand, if it's demand response that you're talking about and the opportunities there, really interested in it. But we might need to look at different ways of implementing those projects. I kind of struggle at this stage to see how it's going to fit within the current funding envelope and process that we have. But again, I know that it's a bit of an evolving market, and with sort of changed a fair bit over the last couple of years. So certainly interested to hear if there's any great ideas on I suppose, better understanding as to what the opportunity is and how it might be implemented, and any ideas on best approach for contracting those sorts of things.
It's certainly a hot topic within the EEC's membership, so we can continue the conversation on that front. We're out of time. I want to be respectful of your time. If people have further questions, is it best that they go directly to Peter, or what's the appropriate channel?
So you've got the link on the chat bar there to the Greener Government Buildings website. So I think it's got both myself and Peter's contact details on there. And did we get Tiernan's contact details as well up on the chat bar? If that's there, then specifically for the health sector, Tiernan's the go-to man.
And we'll circulate a follow-up email to everyone that's registered for this call with all of those details, and check those with you as well, Sam. So all right, well thank you for your time. Thank you for putting up with my my gentle ribbing as we've worked our way through this. It's been great to get your insights on how this next phase of the GGB will work, and all kidding aside, we're absolutely thrilled that Victoria is continuing to stake out a real leadership position on this important agenda. Dare I say, Sam, showing the rest of the country how it's done.
Thanks, Luke, and yeah, big thank you to everyone that's logged in and observed today.
All right. Well, I'd add my thanks to Sam. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in for today's call. If you're an EC member and have an interest in this space, there is a lot of effort going into it broadly through a few different task groups, but in particular through our commercial building task group, which is in the process of putting together a new best practice guide for government efficiency programs. So you can get involved by emailing the team. And if you aren't an EEC member, why not? I'm sure we can help you out with that as well. Again, jump on our website or email the team. But until next time, it is a goodbye from us, and we'll catch you soon.